One of the questions I get basically every day is, how do I avoid Medicare penalties? I feel like we're ingrained with avoiding penalties, which is a good thing to be afraid of, but let's get really clear in this video as to what the penalties actually are and how you can avoid them, because there's a lot of misunderstanding about what these rules are. You've worked hard for Medicare. Let's now get the most out of it. I'm Emily, the Medicare coach, an independent Medicare advocate, helping you, as well as my parents, easily make their right Medicare decision to protect your healthcare rights and your retirement savings as well. So make sure you subscribe to my channel to get more insider tips to get the most out of your Medicare benefits. So how do you avoid Medicare penalties? This conversation came up this morning with one of my clients, and there's a lot of fear around Medicare and penalties, but people aren't always sure as to how the penalties actually work and what they actually need to do to avoid those, okay? So again, let's get really clear as to what the penalties are and how you avoid them. Now, there are two main rules when it comes to Medicare that result in penalties if you don't meet the rules, okay? And the first one is around general healthcare coverage. Medicare rules say by the time you're 65, you either have to be on Medicare or on an employer plan that meets Medicare rules. And if you don't, you will be penalized. So, and this penalty can actually be quite expensive. And it can have a lot of other consequences as well. So when the most frequent time where I see people make this mistake is when they don't join Medicare at 65 and they don't have an employer plan that meets Medicare rules. So I see people who, again, delay Medicare past 65 because they have an employer plan, but that employer plan only has 10 employees, so it doesn't meet Medicare rules. I've seen people get this penalty because they have COBRA and they assume that COBRA meets Medicare rules, which it doesn't, and so they have penalties there as well. Usually people do have some other form of health insurance, and there's just a misunderstanding about what that insurance has to be in order to meet Medicare rules. So the most important penalty to avoid is, again, this overall healthcare coverage at 65. Please be very confident in what you're doing at 65. And then if you are delaying Medicare past 65, again, be 100% confident that you understand that this other plan that you have truly meets Medicare rules. Usually the penalties happen when people make innocent mistakes, but they do end up happening. So please be careful on that, okay? I also see people who, again, assume that by living overseas, you don't have to have Medicare. But again, if you're a US citizen and you eventually want to have Medicare, it's really important that you meet those rules once you're 65. Not only are the penalties costly, but if you do kind of miss this initial enrollment period, it can be really hard to get Medicare later on. I was speaking with a woman a few months ago. She was on COBRA. She got a massive bill, a $40,000 bill for her health care because she had no idea that COBRA did not meet Medicare rules. And she was frantic to get on Medicare because she had a hip replacement coming up soon. But the reality is, not only did she now have penalties for Medicare and big bills, she wasn't going to be able to get Medicare until the following July 1st. And so it was not a good place to be. So not only, again, are the penalties a pain, but the other rules that kind of coincide with missing Medicare rules can be an absolute nightmare. So please be 100% confident at 65 years old that, again, you are in compliance with Medicare rules to both avoid penalties and avoid that lapse in coverage, okay? Now, the second type of penalties that most people don't know about is that there's actually drug coverage penalties. Medicare rules say by the time you're 65, you need to have a creditable drug plan. And if you don't, you will be penalized. And this catches a lot of people off guard. Again, if you have medications, it kind of just makes sense to get a drug plan. But some people who take no medications or even just generic medications might decide to forego drug coverage once you're on Medicare. And again, that can lead to penalties. Now, these penalties are much smaller than, say, your Part B penalty that happens more frequently. But again, this penalty does exist. And so just be aware of how the drug penalty works and simply miss that simple mistake. Now, good companies or coupon programs like GoodRx does not meet Medicare rules, okay? That is not a creditable plan as deemed in the eyes of the government. So again, make sure you have a creditable drug plan to avoid drug penalties as well. Some of those plans can be really inexpensive, And so most people are better off getting a drug plan than getting the prescription penalty, but it depends. Sometimes with higher income, you might be better off with a penalty, but it comes down to the numbers. So again, there are two main types of penalties when it comes to Medicare. They're really easy to avoid if you understand how they work and you understand whether or not you truly meet those rules or not. Again, it can be gray for some people or getting different opinions from others. So please be 100% confident in what you're doing with Medicare to be confident in your decision. Again, I'm with the Medicare coach. In the link below, I'm going to include extra resources to help you navigate Medicare as well. All right, thanks for joining me. And here's to helping you again easily navigate Medicare to get the most out of your hard-earned benefits.